Okay, so we're here for the Power Half Hour for the discussions tool in TCU Online. As you know, this is a 30-minute demo workshop, so we're going to just go ahead and dive in because there's a lot of ground to cover here. Discussions are one of the several activities available in this new platform. You can use discussions to increase communication and collaboration and gain insight to student thinking and understanding. These work a little bit differently than eCollege worked with discussions, so we have a little flow chart available. Let me make this a little smaller so it fits. Okay, so discussions in TCU Online require a forum and a topic. All discussions must be housed within a forum. Forums organize the related topics into categories, and then the topics are created for users to actually read and respond to. A thread is the student's response to the topic, and a post is a response to the thread. So this is way more powerful than what eCollege did. So just a quick example, the forum might be called weekly discussions, and then one topic might be week one discussion, or something more profound. A thread would be if Kate, my colleague here, were to respond to the original posed question, her thread would appear here and I could respond to her. Or say if Johnny wanted to respond differently to that original topic, he could create a thread and then Linda could respond to that with a post. So you can create threads as a response to the main topic, or you can post a response to someone's thread. It's a little bit different than what we're used to, but it's all kind of like category and folder type organization. So it has a hierarchy that's just a little different than what we're used to. So let me get out of the maximum here and move on. So we have two ways to access and build discussions. The first that I'm going to go into more depth is to go to activities and go into discussions. As I said, we'll go through this in a minute, but another way is to go through a module. So you would go to your content and you can upload and create a new discussion. And through this, you can create your title and instructions, and you can create a new forum from here or select an existing one. However, we don't really recommend going this route because you don't have as many preferences and options. So this I would use really sparingly. It is possible, but we would actually recommend going directly to the tool to create things. So that's what I'm going to walk through in more depth here. So to get into the tool, we go to activities and then go to discussions. And you'll see that there's a sample forum here. So the sample forum and then different topics are within that. We're going to create a new forum. And I'm going to call mine weekly discussions. So it's up to you, whatever you title your forum. Some examples might be weekly discussions, course questions, or virtual office. Remember, the forums are more of the big picture category to group similar discussion topics together. So you can add your description. This would be where you would, give a guideline or expectations or grading information. So I'm just going to type guidelines, expectations. You would write out something from your syllabus, for instance. Then you have some options here. So let's see. Your options are best practice. You always want to check the box that users must start a thread before they can read and reply. This is up to you ultimately, but we recommend that for gaining some original response from your students that they don't see their peers' response until they respond themselves. So you can check that box. You can check the box for display forum description in topics. What this will do is if you put in this description box the guidelines and expectations, such as you must respond to at least 2 of your peers and you must have, X amount of words in your response and cite two things, or whatever it may be. This would appear before every topic. So you don't have to repeat it. It would just automatically show up. Some other options are if you want anonymous posts, or if you want to moderate each of the responses, that would be a little bit more high maintenance. So it depends on your content if that it would be applicable. I want to point out that each of these items and throughout the platform, there are question marks that you can click and it will give you more information. So if you didn't know what this would mean, it gives a little bit more detail. So that's available to you throughout. So it gives more information everywhere. The next section, it may be set to show or hide, so I'm going to show it. This is visibility. So visibility and locking can be set at the forum level or the topic level. Whatever the forum is set at will cascade to all topics within the forum. What we recommend is that you leave the availability for forums as always available and visible and unlocked, and then set your preferences for visibility within the topics themselves. So this means that, if we have this forum available, the students would see, for instance, weekly discussions, and then you can schedule week 1 would show these dates and times. Week 2 would show, the next set of dates and times. So once you have this set, we can save it. And actually, I should have clicked Save and Add Topic. So we're saving the forum, and then we're going to proceed on to the next one. This will be where we create our actual discussion posts. So we're going to add our new topic in our forum called Weekly Discussions. We'll title it, since my forum was called Weekly Discussion, I'm going to call this Week 1 Discussion. You might call it, let's discuss, whatever your topic is. So you can add that there. You would then post in the description field your actual discussion prompt. So as you see, just skimming through this page, this looks a whole lot like our forum page, but the topic page, as I just mentioned, is where the discussion prompt is posted. So you will set individual preferences for this specific discussion, and you can connect this topic to a grade item. So the topic is vital for having the discussion and is required if you want the students to actually have a place to respond. So I'm just going to do discussion prompt goes here. Obviously, please put an actual discussion prompt in that space. So for this forum, or I'm sorry, for this topic, this discussion prompt, you have those options again. Do you want this one to be anonymous? Do you want to moderate this specific topic? Do you want students to start a thread before they can read and reply to others? I'm going to check that box. Do you want them to be able to rate other people's posts with a 5-star up and down vote, or up vote only 1? And then what is the availability? So the availability is the visibility. How will students see it? When will they see it? So if you didn't want them to get a glimpse ahead of time, you can, lock it down. So this is where you would set the start and end date. So I want the topic to be visible. Let's see. Kate, do we typically do this do we recommend it to be always visible, or what do you recommend?
So we recommend always visible in case, maybe a student has like a really good idea that they sort of kind of accidentally stumble upon in week 3, and then they want to go back and read what they wrote and like revisit that in their final paper and develop that idea. And then the date driving is just done by the locking.
Okay.
So you should always be able to go back and see, maybe, if that makes sense in your pedagogical context, what was written for a particular week.
Great, thanks for adding that. So visibility, you keep it available, but the locking would be where they can see what the discussion prompt is, but they can't actually respond or post. So the locking has to do with the actual post ability. So for this example, we'll keep it visible, but I'm going to unlock it on, we'll say today. And this one will end on the 30th at 5 p.m. You can add this to the calendar so that it will prompt notifications to your students and also appear in that calendar tool that we have. And before I continue, I'm going to move through these other tabs, but I'm a little OCD, so I always suggest clicking Save to make sure that you don't lose any of your preferences. And we'll move over to the Restrictions tab. So restrictions allow you to do a couple different things. You can create and attach release conditions. Release conditions are a larger discussion that we need to have outside of this Power Half Hour, but what they are you can reveal this this discussion topic to your students if they have accomplished something, if they have completed reviewing content, if they have earned a score, if they have submitted their quiz, or different kinds of conditions. So you have the ability to choose who and what and why and how they actually would see this. You can also, if they earned a certain score, like you can see this if you earned a 90 or above on your last paper or whatever it is. So that's available to you. You also have the ability to restrict the topic to groups and sections. So if you use the group tool, or if you have multiple sections combined in a course shell, you can have that display just for them. Assessment, I'm going to move over to that tab. You can tie this to a grade item. So we have a category already set up, threaded discussions. I can choose that they can get 100 out of this or whatever score I want. You can also create a new grade item from here. I can add a rubric as well. And I can allow assessment of individual posts. So if I had my students respond 3 times, I could grade each individual response post. The next option is objectives, and this again is a larger discussion, but essentially you can associate learning objectives and outcomes from your course or department to this specific discussion. Let's see. Just to jump back really quick, if I skimmed over this too quickly, on the assessment option where you add this to the gradebook, you always want to make sure that this out of score matches your gradebook. So once you set this, you might want to go back and look back at the actual gradebook to make sure everything matches and everything. Again, I want to also point out that there are those question marks. So if you're not sure what a specific thing is, you can go and get more information. So now that we have this set up, I'm going to click Save and Close. And so now I have my weekly discussions and week 1. So if we wanted a discussion for week 2 and what have you, we would simply go and add a new topic and then associate it with the weekly discussions. Note you can also do that from the context menu next to the forum title as well. So I just want to look over. It looks like Linda's question has to do with what I'm about to go over. So, and Johnny, I'll come back to your question in just a moment. So the next thing, we've created this, and say that you want this to appear in context in your content. So just for an example, I'm going to have week 1, module week 2. We'll pretend that we have lecture and reading and other kinds of relevant information in this model or module. So we'll just pretend that that's here. So we've created it. Now we go to content, we select our module or unit or week or whatever you want to call it, and you can do existing activities selection and then select discussions. And here are your forums that are available. So for instance, weekly discussions, and I would choose week 1. And so now if I were to have multiple items in here, such as lecture would appear first, then they can move naturally to the next item, which would be that discussion. So that's available for the students within context. Okay, so the next thing I want to point out is, like I mentioned at the beginning, you can also create them from this content area where you can do add new discussion. But just now that you have seen more in detail what it all is available with restrictions and objectives and assessment tab, that is just not really available to us here. It's really simplified, and so this is why we really suggest not creating it from the content tool. Always go back to the tool. You will always, for all of these options, have a lot more options, which is a great thing. And you can set more preferences and easily go in and then associate it to your content later. I want to, since we still have a few minutes, I want to quickly show you what it looks like to assess. You can go, this is an example of a course that has a whole lot of discussions in here. We have the ability to go to the topic and you can assess it. You can also do this from the gradebook. So I can go and go to this one. I can see all of my students and their submissions. So if I select Albert, for example, oh, he did not submit, so I can grade that. Let me see if we have one that has. So here's an example. Susan B. Anthony did respond. Here are her two responses. This is a terrible example, but we'll just pretend that these are amazing responses. I can see pulled out of context her actual responses here, and I can give feedback and assess this here. That just shows us the page. I can select their page as well from the assessments tab. One other thing I wanted to show you here was we don't have a journal tool in this platform. However, you can create a group that you would then create discussions per each student. So this is kind of above and beyond. I wanted to mention that in lieu of having the journal tool, you can use the discussion tool for a different purpose and use this where only Albert Einstein, for example, and you would see Albert's response. So that's available to you. So I'm going to scroll up in the chat and read some of these questions, and then I will open up the mics. So Johnny asked, let's see, Johnny's question, once a topic is scheduled, will it automatically unlock on the begin date, or will we have to manually unlock the topic? So if you set up your discussion and it is set to unlock on a certain date and time. We'll pretend this was tomorrow. It would automatically unlock. It's date driven for you. So you can go ahead and schedule that out ahead of time and it'll just automatically work for you. So it's pretty self-steering. It looks like we handled Linda's question about putting the discussion in context. Let's see. Do you have time to show grading a discussion forum by rubric? Okay, so let's see. Kate has said to me, okay, so Kate, do you have one set up with a rubric?
I built a threaded discussion rubric that's available in the Power Half Hour. I don't know if there are actually performance criteria, but there is an existing rubric in the rubric tool, so we can show adding it to a specific topic.
Okay. So we'll go to add a rubric. So we have this rubric already created. It's super simple, but it's available to us. So you would first, let me back up just a moment. You can create a rubric in a new window and go through all the steps to create your levels and criteria and go more in depth of, getting it all fleshed out for you. And then you would go to your discussions, select, I'm just going to pick this first one. And in the assessment tab, you would add that rubric to your discussion and save. And so now when you go to assess it, it will show up here where you can, read. We'll pretend that there were, two posts here, and you can just go and score it from here. So it's really simple to do. In our follow-up email, we have information about how to get set up with your discussion, but also where students would view their discussion rubrics. So you can associate it to the rubric itself or to the gradebook. Either way, you can do it. This, I feel, is the most easy for faculty to be able to see it in context and assess that rubric accordingly. Is there a preferred way to grade discussion forums or go through the grade tab? Really and truly, you can go either way. If you wanted to, it depends. It depends on your workflow, really. If you want to first go in, I'm going to hop over to this course because there were some responses, I believe. Let's see. So if you wanted to see the actual responses, you can go and, if this is your normal workflow where you go and you want to read everything, you can go in and select each topic or thread and see what the response was and just kind of, skim through it. For each of these, you can go and assess it and it would pull it out of context. Basically, if you go this route or if you go to the gradebook, you're going to see similar things. I think I personally like going to the gradebook because I can see really easily, with this lovely little icon. Okay, so Susan B did submit something. Let me click that and view the response and, easily give that feedback and a score. You also have a feedback option. So if you wanted, Linda, I saw your question about giving the score. The general feedback would be given on that other icon, but the feedback specific, good job, I like your insight, or whatever it was, you can add that, and this would go back and be attached to their grade. You can also add private comments if you just wanted to start grading and then leave some comments specifically for yourself to look back later. You can add that privately for yourself. Okay, I'm going to open up the microphones, and you guys have been leaving some good questions. If you want to chat on your mic and speakers or your phone, or if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. And if there are no other questions, then feel free to sign off and keep an eye out for an email. It will likely come from Kate today, and we'll have a ton of resources available to you. And as always, we are eager to help you at Open Labs or more in-depth training where we can go over use cases and, your specific situation. Linda, I agree. It is fantastic, and there are so many options, and it is overwhelming for all of us. I think you're really going to like it. I think for fully online classes like you teach, you're going to find this very powerful. Thanks for joining.